Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. David Glassner, Superintendent of Shaker Heights City School District. Great to be with you this afternoon. I'm here to provide an update regarding the start of the 2020-2021 school year. I always enjoy these updates and providing you with additional information. I do want to let everybody know, and I will repeat this again at the end of today's broadcast, that today will be my last summer update because we're getting very close to the beginning of the school year. Of course, we will continue to provide regular updates in other forms for our families and community members, both in written form and other messages and other means of communication. But I just wanted to let everybody know that. Today, I will be talking about some updates since our last presentation last week, and also going through some questions that we've received over the past few days. And with that, I will share my screen here so that I can share a slide deck. So just some of the topics that I will be talking about today. I'll kind of remind everybody or reiterate our guiding principles, talk through our return to work plan, athletics, provide an update on athletics, discuss some of the details related to food services over the course of the next few months, and then answer some questions that have come in. So I know I've started many of my updates with these guiding principles, and I just want to remind everybody that as we've developed our plans for the upcoming school year, student and staff health and safety has been paramount, has been a primary focus, and we've aligned our plans with our district strategic plan, which rests on the two pillars of educational equity and the International Baccalaureate Framework. All right, so yesterday we released our return to work on-site plan. This is a phased-in approach to bringing our employees back to working on-site in our district buildings. We recognize that we need to do this in a very deliberate and methodical way. We want to replicate a lot of the phased-in approaches we've seen in other areas. For example, we used a phased-in approach with athletics to really build up to more activity or more of our staff in our school buildings. We think that's really important. We also know from the spring that it is important when possible to have staff working in our buildings, particularly when they're able, because for our teachers, it provides the ability to have easy access to materials and supplies and strong internet connections. And we know for our other employee groups, being on site is also very helpful. So phase one of our return to work on site plan will start. Phase one is a voluntary on-site report to work phase. So employees can report to work on site if they choose to. That will start. We will begin the phase one of our return to work plan next week on August 17th. And we will be closely monitoring phase one to ensure that everybody maintains the appropriate physical health and safety protocols and guidelines to ensure that we are reducing or as close to possible eliminating the risk of any spread of COVID-19, and that we have all the structures and protocols that we need to have in place to continue to have staff and eventually students return to our school buildings. So again, phase one of our return to work plan begins next week. We have a staggered approach for our different employee groups, and that is a voluntary report to work on site phase. I should, of course, clarify, I know this probably goes without saying, but just to make sure it's clear, for our employees who are not on site, they will be working remotely. Phase two of our return to work plan will have all employees working on site. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this phase will be implemented only after continuous monitoring of phase one and when deemed appropriate. And I know there are a lot of different factors that go into the consideration of when it might be a good idea to move to phase 2. We will be looking at all those different factors and, like I said, closely monitoring phase 1 in order to determine when it makes sense to move to phase 2. In addition to releasing our return to work plan yesterday, we also released a draft version of our health, safety, screening, and absence protocols. This is an in-depth document really targeted to our staff and employee groups to really go through all of the protocols and procedures that we will be following as we return to school in the upcoming weeks. This document will be available on our website. I believe it already is for those people who are interested in looking at it. And of course, all of our staff has already received this document. I should, of course, note, and again, this may go without saying, but just to clarify, that in a phase 2 return to work, all of our employees would be working on site, except for those with medical reasons who are unable to return to work. Similar to how we've structured the potential return to school for our students, we know that there will be individuals or groups of people who are unable to return to working or learning on site because of medical reasons, and of course, we will accommodate those individuals accordingly. The reason we have released this plan is in line with our goal to eventually get students back into classrooms. We know that the first step towards getting students back into classrooms is to get our staff back into buildings. And so we're looking ahead and want to make sure that we are planning proactively for that possibility. I want to give everyone an update related to athletics. As many of you know, we suspended athletic programming last week because of the Cuyahoga County Board of Health recommendation that all athletic programming, along with other extracurricular programming, in-person extracurricular programming, be suspended. After that guidance came out, there was some additional guidance that came out through the Ohio Department of Health, and we have continued to be in regular contact with the Cuyahoga County Board of Health, as well as other school districts, including the other member districts of the Lake Erie League, our athletic conference. After many conversations and a lot of planning, we decided to continue or to restart phase 1 athletic skills training this week. So we restarted the skills training this past Monday. That is no contact or very low contact individual skills training that is happening on our fields, primarily in our school facilities. And we are going to continue to closely monitor how our phase 1 skills training is going in order to determine what next steps we should be taking. There is a lot of different, sometimes conflicting guidance that currently exists related to athletics across the state. We are in regular contact, not just with other districts, but with state agencies to determine next steps regarding athletics. And as always, we hope to have more information to share in the near future. I want to talk a little bit about food services. As many of you know, we have continued to provide meals for our students over the summer. We will continue to provide meals in a remote setting when we restart school in the next couple of weeks. We are working to do our best to try to distribute meals during student lunch hours so that students who want to get meals will not have to interrupt their learning in order to get meals. We are still finalizing details and are working with our food service partner, AVI, as well as other state and local agencies to make sure that we're able to maximize our food services even in a remote setting over the next few weeks. So again, more information will be coming soon, but I wanted to make sure that that was clear for everybody. All right, this time I'm going to go through some of the questions that we've received over the past few days. Thank you again to everybody who has provided feedback and asked these questions. Originally, the school year was slated to start on August 19th, and now it is planned to start on August 31st. How will the district make up for those 8 missed school days? So every year, we are required to meet certain amount of instructional time that amount of time is set by the state. The way we design our school year calendar, we are normally well over the required amount of time that our students need to have instructional time based on state compliance. So we made the calendar proposal change, knowing that we could make this calendar change without having to add school days in any of our currently scheduled vacation days or adding days to the end of the year. So we do not have to make up for those 8 missed school days. Now we recognize that, of course, it is most important for our students to have as much instructional time as possible. So we did not make this decision lightly. We recognize that there is a lot of planning that still needs to happen. All of our teachers will be reporting in 2 days from now, this Thursday, and there's a lot of preparation and support we want to make sure our teachers have time for in order to be ready to roll out a strong and robust remote learning program in the next few weeks. So that's why we made the decision to start students on August 31st instead of earlier. Maybe a silver lining here, at least some people may consider it a silver lining, is we also recognize that because we are getting more adept and proficient at providing instruction in a remote learning environment, there is less of a likelihood that we will wind up having snow days or other kinds of calamity days this school year. So that also factored into our calendar decision. Now that the school year will be starting remotely, and the assumption is that transportation is no longer a critical component, will the start and end time of each school day revert to what it was last academic year? So I just want to kind of thank you very much for the question. I just want to review or refresh everybody's, refresh the information. This slide shows the start and end times for all of our buildings and grade levels this upcoming year. And as the question noted, some of the start and end times are different than they have been in the past. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about our K-4 buildings, since we've gotten a number of questions related to the earlier start time for K-4 buildings. We made this change, partly it is true because of transportation, and we wanted to make sure that if we are able to implement a hybrid model, that we're able to get all of our students to and from school. And as a result, we had to make some adjustments to the start and end time of our school buildings. We are keeping our K-4 buildings start and end time even in a remote setting. We're going to keep it this way for a couple of reasons. First of all, we want to plan for the possibility that we may one day get our students back in person, potentially or likely in some kind of hybrid model. And so we wanted to leave open that possibility without having to revise or change school start and end times in the middle of the school year. We also recognize, no answer is perfect for everyone, but that developmentally, it does make sense to have younger students, generally speaking, start their school day earlier and have older students start their school day later. And so you'll see that that is the pattern that we've implemented from kindergarten through the middle school. So those are two of the reasons. You'll see also that this start and end time schedule does allow time for intervention time for students with disabilities or who need additional support in all of our buildings from K through 12, and we are excited about that. So those are some of the reasons why we have chosen to stick with the start and end time that you see on this schedule, and we look forward to implementing it this school year. Can you in detail explain the difference between synchronous and asynchronous instruction? Sure. Synchronous instruction is live instruction. It is the equivalent of being in a classroom, except instead of being in a classroom, you are engaging through a device. Synchronous instruction means that a student and a teacher are interacting and engaging throughout a lesson in real time. Asynchronous instruction means that a student is watching a pre-recorded video or is given an assignment or a task to complete without the teacher being there in real time. I think one of the questions or points of confusion that has come up related to synchronous versus asynchronous instruction is the question of how active and engaged a student will be in either a synchronous or asynchronous learning model. In a synchronous model, students will be actively participating in learning, just like they would be doing in their classroom. There will be times where they're listening to their teacher. There will be times where they're engaged in small group instruction or in doing independent work. So it is really an active learning process. It is not a passive learning process where a student would be, for example, sitting and listening to somebody lecture for the entire school day. In an asynchronous learning model, students are also active and engaged in learning. We recognize, of course, that in an asynchronous learning model, there will be a little bit less of the engagement or give and take with the teacher that would normally happen in a synchronous learning platform or live in the classroom. But students are still expected to complete tasks or watch videos and learn, and then reflect on the learning that they've done in an asynchronous learning model. I'm very concerned about my child's ability to focus on the computer for so many hours a day. Will Shaker be providing families with an asynchronous option for completing lessons and assignments? We've heard this concern from a number of different people over the course of the past few weeks. And we recognize that screen time and sitting on a computer for an entire day is challenging and can be challenging particularly for some of our younger students when it is less developmentally appropriate. As I alluded to in my previous response, learning will be active and engaging, and we expect that students will be really actively learning throughout the day, that they will not be sitting and just staring at a computer screen for the entire day. There are also asynchronous learning activities that are included, if I'm not mistaken, in all of our grade level learning plans. So there are times where students will be doing some asynchronous learning work. One example of that, just off the top of my head, our Woodbury schedule is probably the best example of this, where students kind of go back and forth. They have a period of synchronous learning, followed by a period of asynchronous learning, and then a period of synchronous learning as well. So we really did try to balance the synchronous with asynchronous learning opportunities and ensure that our students will be actively engaged throughout the school day. Next question, will homework be assigned in addition to the required hours students will be on screen in synchronous learning? Like in regular school, there will be some homework. Of course, this depends largely on grade levels and dependent on some of the courses that our students take. But we do expect that, just like in regular school, that there will be homework assigned. I also want to make clear that, as I've mentioned, the kinds of activities students will be engaged in during the day allow for students to complete work in small groups and independently. So all of that work will not be, all that independent work will not just be saved for students to do on their own for homework. There will be opportunities for them to engage in those kinds of learning activities during the school day. But like I said, just like we have homework in regular school time, I expect that there will be some homework assigned for students in the remote setting as well. This concludes the questions that I wanted to answer today. Just some upcoming information. We have a Board of Education meeting this evening starting at 6 p.m. As always, I encourage everybody to tune in and get to hear what we'll be sharing. One of the things I want to highlight is we will be sharing, our learning and teaching team will be sharing an update for our 2020-2021 school plan that will include some additional information about what classes will look like, what our schedules will look like, and what kind of preparation and professional learning our teachers are engaging in as we prepare for the upcoming school year. As I mentioned at the beginning of today's update, this is also my final summer update since we're getting very close to the school year. We will continue, of course, to provide our families with information for the upcoming school year through a variety of different communication tools. You probably have seen already that we've been publicizing a lot of information related to getting ready for the start of the school year. I have really enjoyed and appreciated the opportunity to provide our community with regular updates over the course of the summer. I hope that everyone has found them valuable. I do want to, before closing, just give a special thank you to our communications team who has really gone above and beyond in all of their work over the summer, including helping prepare for these regular updates to our community. So thank you to our communications team. Your work is very much appreciated. With that, this concludes today's summer update. I hope everyone has a great day and a good afternoon, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.